majority has made numerous attempts every single year to reform our initiative petition process. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with our initiative petition process, it is the gold standard in this country. There are multiple states, red and blue, who do not have an initiative process. It is, to quote John Ashcroft, it is the ultimate check on the tyranny of the majority. It is the public's check on the legislature. It is the public's ability to have their voices heard when our legislature refuses to hear it. And so it makes sense, if you were in control of that legislature, that you wouldn't like that initiative petition process very much. In fact, if you go back to as early as the 1980s, when the Hancock Amendment was passed, and the Democrats, when they had the supermajority in the legislature, did not want the initiative petition process and made multiple attempts to reform it. In the early 90s, in 1992, the Democrat-held legislature passed initiative petition reform, and John Ashcroft, who was the governor at the time, he vetoed that. And he made a lengthy statement about how he believed in the initiative petition process, because he believes that it is the most pure form of democracy. It is the people's voice being heard across the state. And so, for those of you who are unfamiliar with our initiative petition process, and I think most of you are, I think most of you guys have probably even gathered signatures for it, for an initiative petition, at least one, right? There are two different prongs of it. There is the simple statute version of it, that requires the threshold for signature gathering is much lower than the constitutional prong of that, which puts an amendment into the Constitution. What are the differences between the two? So a statute can be easily overturned by the legislature, as we saw with Proposition A, which is earned paid sick leave and a minimum wage increase. And it was as soon as that was passed in November of last year, at a pretty high level across the state, it became the top of the Republicans' priorities to repeal that. And they were able to. They were able to simply repeal that. That no longer exists, and we no longer have earned paid sick leave in this state, because it was a statute and the Republican-held legislature chose to overturn it. So the constitutional version of that is what we saw with Amendment 3, which protected a woman's right to choose in this state, reproductive health care. As soon as that was passed in November of last year, that became the goal of the Republican legislature, to immediately overturn that. But because that is an amendment to the Constitution, they have to send that back to the people. So we're going to talk about that for a second. With Amendment 3, prior to Amendment 3 passing, we had a complete ban on abortion in this state because of House Bill 126, which was passed my first year in the legislature. It was a trigger ban, which meant that as soon as Roe fell, it would be a complete ban on abortion across the state, regardless of reasons why, with no exceptions. So, shockingly, the state was against that. I say that very sarcastically because Roe itself holds at about 70% across the country, regardless of how you vote on anything else. The vast majority of Americans support access to reproductive care. So we were not shocked when that passed. I was also not shocked when the Republicans immediately decided to repeal it. But like I said, because it's a constitutional amendment, it has to go back before the people. And so what they've done so far was back in April and May, they passed it in the House and the Senate, their version of it, which says it is that you have the right to abortion up to 12 weeks if you are a victim of rape or incest. And you have to report that to the police, you have to go through the criminal investigation process, you have to do all of these things. 12 weeks in one day, tough. Not a victim of rape and incest, tough. No other exceptions, none. And also, as what we refer to as ballot candy, and when I say ballot candy, it is a process, it's a tool used by folks when they are writing pieces of legislation that are going to go before the voters to distract you from what their purpose is in passing this piece of legislation. So the purpose of repealing Amendment 3 is to ban abortion, or to ban almost all abortions, right? To repeal Amendment 3. But what they put in it as the sweetener to distract people from that is a constitutional ban on any kind of gender-affirming care. So any kind of treatment for trans people in this state. That is already illegal in our statutes. We already have banned children from accessing any form of gender-affirming care in this state, but they are putting it there. They want it in this repeal of Amendment 3 to simply drum up that base and to distract you from the issue that you're really voting on, which is repealing reproductive care in this state. And I cannot say that enough. That the point of this legislation is not, it doesn't have anything to do with transgender folks in this state, and has everything to do with repealing reproductive care. Yes?
Out of curiosity, the wording that they're wanting to use on that, is it stating minors or is it saying all?
Yes, it says minors.
Oh, okay.
So, but like I said, that is already in our statutes, that reproductive care is illegal in this state. So what's happening right now? So there was a law that was passed in May, and it gives the Secretary of the State multiple bites at the apple to write when we repeal a piece of legislation, or repeal we amend the Constitution, the legislature does, and we send it back to the people. We call that a House Joint Resolution. So that language that goes on the actual ballot is written by the Secretary of State. And it goes before a judge, and the judge calls balls and strikes, or is supposed to call balls and strikes, on whether or not it fits whether or not it appropriately addresses the intent of the outcome of that legislation, if that makes sense. So the Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, has now had 2 bites at the apple. The court has given him, I believe, 4 more days, could be 3, I think it's 3, 3 more days to write the ballot language again, and after that he will get 1 more chance. So he gets 4 whole chances to try to deceive the people of the state with what their intent is. And so the first couple times, the first time and the second time, the issues that the judge has found is that nowhere in the ballot language does it say anything about repealing Amendment 3. It says nothing about that. It says nothing about, denying care to certain populations, or what, the effective ban would be. It has no language about a ban. It talks about, protecting women and children and things like that. But there's absolutely no language about what the actual restrictions that you would be voting on are. And so that is what the judge has thrown out and said, come back and address these discrepancies, put the language in that is reflective of what this would actually do, or we're not gonna accept it. And so if he goes through his 4 shots, his 4 bites at the apple, then, and only then, can the judge write the language. And that was the issue that was thought about, because if you will remember last year, God, it felt like up to this time, but it was only through, I think, May or so, that they were still fighting in court about the language of the original Amendment 3 going on the ballot. And the Secretary of State at that time, Jay Ashcroft, was trying to be really deceptive with that language. Yes?
If the red herring of the transgender minors thing is already a law, why is it allowed to be in the verbiage at all on the ballot? Why wouldn't the judge say, this is already a law, you can't put that in there? I don't understand why they can get away with putting it in there if it's already a law.
They're doing that in the exact same way that they're trying to repeal initiative petition reform, right? Like the same way that they're trying to sabotage the initiative petition process. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So what they are doing right now with the initiative petition process is the bills that we heard, and I sat on the committee that heard the bill, and it was the most extreme version of initiative petition reform that I have ever heard in all of my time in Jefferson City. Currently, if you want to amend the Constitution and you've met that signature gathering threshold, and that's been approved by the Secretary of State's office, it goes before the entire state for a statewide vote. And it requires a simple majority, which is what is required for anyone to hold elected office. That is the same requirement for the governor down to us measly state representatives, is a simple majority. That's all it requires. But that is, they believe that that is not enough, and I'm gonna use their language and what they say. That it should be harder to amend the Constitution. It should be a much higher threshold in order to amend the Constitution. Okay. So, what they passed and what is going to go before you all next November or August, depending on when the governor puts it, is that you would not only change that threshold, but it would require a majority to pass anything that either statutorily or constitutionally through an initiative petition. It would require a majority in every single congressional district. Which means that one congressional district could kill an entire initiative.
Oh my God.
By one or two votes. By one or two votes. And that's absolutely what they intend. And so it would only require, so if you opposed an initiative petition that was popular statewide, that was going to pass, CD5 and CD4 and 1 and 2 by 70, 80%, something incredibly popular, if you're smart and you've got the money and you've got the volunteers, you find one congressional district and you just hammer it. You hammer it because you've only got to tank it in one congressional district, right? And then it's never going to change anything. And so that's what they want to do. And their argument is that they are tired of the entire state, the Constitution and statutes being changed by people in Kansas City and St. Louis. That's what they say. That they feel like that, ironically, that it's a tyranny of the majority upon the rural areas. Which, if you remember their argument for gerrymandering, which was, we're the majority, we should get to do whatever we want. And so it's interesting that they used both sides of that argument in the same extraordinary special session. But yes, so their intent is to destroy the initiative petition process in this state, to make it almost impossible for anything to ever pass through an initiative petition again. So I'm getting back to your question on ballot candy, because what they added, because it's really hard to believe in this state or anywhere that folks would vote against their ability to impact laws. Why would you vote to give your power away to me, or to give your power away to the folks in Jefferson City? Especially because they are folks that will continually say on the floor in a microphone with their whole chest that you all don't know what you're voting for, you're not smart enough to understand it, and that they're smarter than you and they should be making the laws. It's what they say every single time, whether it's Medicaid expansion, whether it's repealing right to work, whether it's Clean Missouri, whether it's marijuana recreational, marijuana medical, whatever it is, Proposition A, Amendment 3, I could go on and on, because they say it every single time, that you all who voted for it did not know what you were voting for, even if you voted for them too. And guess what? Democrats do not have a majority in this state. That's not a surprise to anyone in this room. But if these issues are passing by a majority, it means Republicans are voting for them, and they're voting for those Republican office holders. And so what a slap in the face of your own constituents and your own supporters to say that you were smart enough to vote for me, but you were dumb about that. And maybe it isn't that these voters are dumb or uneducated or lack the reading comprehension to understand the decisions that they're making. Maybe it's just that they disagree with the folks in Jefferson City. I don't know. But, so what they're trying to do with the piece of ballot candy, because like I said, I do not believe that the people of this state will vote to give away their power. I am not that cynical. I believe that the folks of the state are way smarter than that. So they put in a piece of ballot candy that says that no foreign entities, no foreigners, no foreign countries can contribute financially or volunteer or through in-kind donations, I suppose, to any initiative petition. Well, guess what? That's already federally illegal, and it's illegal in the state. It's illegal. It's already illegal. But they are counting on the people of the state not knowing that. And so what they're going to do when they are advertising and they are campaigning to destroy the initiative petition process in the state is they are going to focus on that piece. They're going to say foreign nationals and foreign countries are coming in and they are determining our laws and they're corrupting our constitution. They're going to say that over and over and over. Yes?
Keri, the question is, how do we combat the ballot candy? Because, you know, it occurs a lot during elections. We had it here in our local elections, but it seems like people grasp onto the people that they know,
Right.
that they've always voted for, and they'll say, since you said that, we believe you.
Right.
But some kind of way, we've got to have some forums and some meetings, and even if
Like
it's
this one.
like this one, or talk to people who aren't familiar with that.
Yeah.
Because they're going into churches,
Yeah.
they're going into nursing homes, and they're getting the vulnerable people that don't know any better. And they're the ones, some of them, that's the base that votes.
Yeah.
So some kind of way, we've got to figure out how we.
What if we went into nursing homes and we went into churches? Because the Supreme Court made a ruling on that churches can be political now too. And so what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
So
If the
here-
rules change, then we should adopt them as well.
So here, the mayor, he's
Yeah.
a Republican mayor. He gave, where's Jeremy? He just gave a proclamation recently to the nursing home, correct? Are you familiar with that?
Say that again?
Are you familiar with the proclamation the mayor gave to the nursing facility?
No.
So anyway, as elected people, when we go to campaign, we can't go into nursing facilities. But, you know, that's just a way of them to find reason that they can get in there and spread their word. So we gotta find out a strategy, how we can combat that, because they're getting into these type places.
Well, as far as I know, we can go into nursing facilities. I go in and talk to John Knox 2 or 3 times a year, John Knox Village. So I know that we can.
So
Maybe we haven't historically done that.
Is there a law against it?
No. No.
So any.
No, it's up to that facility if and you know that community if they want you to come in or not. But they invite us in multiple times a year. I know that campus has spoken
I know
over
a
there as
couple of us
well.
got turned away a couple of times. They said it was illegal. It's
No,
good it's good
and
to
there, I
know.
mean, there might be a city ordinance, but it's protected by the First Amendment. You know, if it's a private facility and they choose not to allow it, that's fine, but no, there's no law that could dictate that because it is protected by the First Amendment. We can go anywhere.
That's
Yeah,
good to know, but
absolutely.
the ballot can't be-
Yeah, because they bring in all the Republicans all the time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Trust me, they brought the mayor in.
And so
when he was
it's
running.
more important
Yeah,
now
so
than
yeah.
ever that we talk to as many folks as we possibly can, that we, you know, be that standard bearer of that messaging, right? Like, no one is gonna come in and do this for us. There are going to be groups that are gonna be putting a lot of money behind protecting the initiative petition process, including the Missouri Realtors Association. They will be very, they will help it in a monetary way. So we do have some partnerships. You know, the big labor unions in the state will be completely behind it as well. You know, or when I say behind it, opposing it, right? Behind opposing it. So it will be a battle. It will be a fiercely fought battle because this has been at the top of the Republicans' priority list for as long as they've held the majority. Because like I said, the initiative petition process is the ultimate check on the majority. And that's true both ways. I'm gonna be really honest about that because when the Democrats held the majority, they wanted to do away with it too. And so it's really important that that's part of that dialogue that we have with folks, or that we have with Republicans.